when you are in a situation of acting in the assumption of the wish fulfilled, it's essentially you knowing that this is already done. And think about it for a second. If I told you tomorrow the sun is going to shine, you wouldn't question me on that because you would simply know, yes, the sun is going to come out tomorrow. I know that to be true. However, when somebody tells you that you want to act in the assumption of already having that job that you so desire, already having that significant other that you are seeking to have in your life, when somebody says that to you, for the most part, you question it because you don't really believe that to be true. And the only difference there is that you are separating yourself from that wish fulfilled, from it already being here in existence. What's going on, guys? Alexa Pena here with another episode for Walking Manifestator. And today I want to talk about acting in the assumption of the wish fulfilled. If you are in your manifestation quest and you are looking to start manifesting some things into your 3D reality, this is definitely an episode you want to stick around for. So with that being said, let's dive deep. Now, I want to start by referencing one of the best books that I personally have really gone fond of, and it's by Wallace Wattles, and it's The Science of Getting Rich. And this really taps into manifestations and how you can actually embody a completely different side of you through acting in the assumption of something that is not yet of your 3D reality. Now, for some of you that are probably like, what do you mean by 3D? Essentially, there's different realities, there's different dimensions. And when you are in a state of thinking that there's only a linear direction, being the past, the present, and the future, you close yourself to the possibility of the quantum field, quantum physics, meaning that there's different types of dimensions through different types of realities. And I don't want to lose you here, but I just want to read a quick paragraph so that we can dive deep into how I've been able to understand this, and hopefully this is something that helps you in your journey. Now, chapter 11, in acting in a certain way. Thought is a creative power, or the impelling force which causes the creative power to act. Thinking in a certain way will bring riches to you, but you must not rely upon thought alone, paying no attention to personal action. And that is so powerful because that is something that many people, when they're manifesting or getting into that journey of trying to manifest more abundance into their life, they don't really understand how manifestations work. Therefore, they call it woo-woo because they say, you're meaning to tell me that if I sat in my room and meditate, that abundance is just going to come to me? Yeah, right. That's just crazy. And you see, that's not how it works. It's 80% mindset and 20% action, but there is still an action that you need to take. However, the action that you're now taking is going off of that 80% mindset that you have. Therefore, the 20% action is going to be that much more potent because now you're acting with an intention. You're carrying out an idea that in your mind you have now solidified. So what he's referring to in this paragraph, when you talk about you must not rely upon thought alone, pay no attention to personal action, he is elaborating on the fact that in your mind, you need to be very, very clear on what it is that you want. However, it's not woo-woo because you're not going to just sit there and not do anything to actually bring that into fruition. So I made a story not too long ago and somebody asked me, how and what does it mean to act in the assumption of the wish fulfilled? And this is something that I've learned from some of my coaches, Reagan Hillier. I've learned it from Kathleen Cameron, from Bob Proctor. And these are just to name a few. Dr. Joe Dispenza is also one of my mentors that I really admire. And one of the interesting things about this is when you are in a situation of acting in the assumption of the wish fulfilled, it's essentially you knowing that this is already done, knowing and not hoping for something. When you're in a state of wishing for something, you're actually acting in a lack mindset. And think about it for a second. If I told you tomorrow the sun is going to shine, you wouldn't question me on that. Now, we're not going to dive deep into some people that are going to have some theories. We're just going to talk about the facts here that we are seeing on an average day, right? We see the sun. Now, if I were to say that to you, you wouldn't question it because you would simply know, yes, the sun is going to come out tomorrow. I know that to be true. However, when somebody tells you that you want to act in the assumption of already having that job that you so desire, already having that significant other that you are seeking to have in your life, already having all the clients that you need for your business, when somebody says that to you, for the most part, you question it because you don't really believe that to be true. And the only difference there between the assumption of the sun is that you are separating yourself from that wish fulfilled, from it already being here in existence. And you see, when you start tapping into really everything that has been shared by our ancestors, this is not just some woo-woo stuff that came about 10 years ago, 20 years ago. This is something that has been around for decades. And the reality is that it's been buried. It's been hidden by so many different agendas, whether it's dividing, whether it's sharing with people how to hate one another versus love one another, whether it's bashing the fact that somebody believes very differently than you do. We've grown very separate from the wholeness that we are. And this is why when you tap into your paradigm, it is so essential to realize, why do you act the way that you do? Because if you don't understand why you're acting the way that you're acting, you can never really change it. And I can speak from my personal experience. I remember being the type of person that if somebody gave me even the most remote implication of them not agreeing with my perspective, I was very, very set on wanting to prove them wrong or wanting to prove why they were not correct, right? And it's the same thing, but some people change it, right? They're like, no, it's not that I'm saying you're wrong. It's just that I'm right. But it's the same thing, essentially, right? You're labeling somebody being wrong, and therefore you're going to make it your life's mission to try and prove them wrong. Now, the reason for that is typically because you're not 100% sure of yourself. And that is the easiest way to put it. Because although there's people out here that are very set on wanting to prove you wrong, if you really look at their life, for the most part, they're not really whole. They're not really at peace. Because when you're at peace, when you are in just gratitude, you're not going to make it a point to go and sit there and argue with somebody back and forth, trying to prove why you're right and they're wrong. However, as humans, we have this egoistic part of us, which when somebody makes us feel like we're wrong or somebody makes us feel less than, we're very quick to react. And that has been one of the most significant changes in my manifestation journey, learning how to become true awareness. And in every moment of my day, one of my coaches talked about setting an alarm, a manifestation alarm. It goes every hour. And essentially it goes off. You want to choose like a nice alarm, right? Nothing crazy, nothing that's going to completely ruin your day. But essentially, she says, put on an alarm that's going to remind you to go back into your awareness. And as you do that, you just want to take a minute to say, thank you so much for all the abundance that I continue to receive. Thank you for all the old patterns that I'm breaking. Thank you for the immense amount of opportunities that I receive. Whatever you might be looking for. And here's the thing, when you start conditioning your mind to act completely different from what it's been accustomed to, what you're doing is that you are now neurologically, and this has been proven, this is science, you're now reconditioning those neural pathways that we all have. The pathways that you currently have are set to perform in a certain way based on how you've been conditioning them for however long you are. Now, however old you are, sorry. And essentially what happens at that point is that instead of you being in a situation where you're feeling like if you're constantly in this like zombie-like mentality where you're not really coherent of what you're thinking about, you're now tapping into a completely different awareness of you. And now what I find is I'm not waiting on that alarm to go off. What happens is that throughout the day, when I'm in traffic, I'm like constantly just like telling myself like, oh, I'm so thankful for all the opportunities. I'm so thankful for the fact that I have a car. I'm so thankful for the fact that I had the opportunity to go and meet a client today. I'm so thankful for the fact that I had to make time to, work on my book, whatever it is. Instead of focusing on the fact that the car before me or behind me is driving a certain way, instead of focusing on why are people driving the way that they are, or why isn't the car moving the way that I would want it to. So when it comes to manifestations, and this is like the key part, you don't focus on what you don't want, you focus on what you do want. And that's interesting because a lot of people say that they understand it, but yet they do it completely wrong. They say that they are looking for finances, right? They want more financial freedom, but then what they're doing a lot of the times is saying, well, I would like more money and I'm gonna get more money. Yeah, I'm gonna get more money. So what they're doing in that moment, if you think about it, just the verbiage there, I'm going to get more money, is now implying that they don't have that money. So that's already a disconnect from that manifestation because you're telling the universe you don't yet have it. And to some of you listening to this, you might be like, well, yeah, you don't have it yet. But do you? Because if there's an endless amount of resources, there's an endless amount of opportunities, there's an endless amount of things that you can invest to actually truly sharpen your skills, that means that anything you want it's really possible. Therefore, you shouldn't set yourself separate from what the wish fulfilled is. For instance, for me, I know a lot of people, at one point in my time where I would say, I want to make over 6 figures, they would look at me like if I was bonkers because they didn't really see that as something to be true. And when I surpassed my first cap of wanting to make 100,000, I was not surprised. And this might seem like, oh, okay. But this is something that actually happens to a lot of people once they act in the assumption of the wish fulfilled. In my mind, I was already making that money. And when it happened into the 3D, I was just like, yeah, I knew it was going to happen. And to some people that might seem, and this is like the part where society has conditioned us a certain way, and think about it for a second. Society has conditioned you to not praise yourself. Oh, don't say that because you're going to seem like if you're, conceited, or don't say that because you're going to seem like you think you're too good for like whatever it might be. And don't say this because you're going to come across a certain way. It's taught us to not even accept like a compliment. I remember when somebody would tell me like, oh, that looks really good on you. I'd be like, oh no, I just picked this out. Like, no, it's nothing. But yet like deep down, I knew I worked really hard for me to get that outfit or put that outfit together. But because of how, conditioned I was to not accept an actual acknowledgement of something, it was like, oh no, it's nothing. But why? We've done it because that's how we've been conditioned through peers, through society, through norms. But the reality is that you need to start realizing that you are part of everything. And Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this. He's like, when you become nothing, you are everything. When you are nowhere, you are everywhere. When you are no thing, you are everything. And that is so beautiful, guys, because that's legit how I live my life. And I shared with you guys on the last podcast, I believe, where my son, he had been threatened at school. This was last year in first grade. And some kid basically told him that, he wanted to kill him. And my son literally obviously was devastated. But when we talked about it, he was like, it's okay, mommy. Like, I know he's probably going through a lot of things at his house and maybe his parents don't love him as much as you love me. And that just showed me that the lessons that I'm preaching about, it's not just talking about something, it's actually acting in that assumption and actually teaching by example. How many times have we heard our parents or whoever you might have been raised with, don't lie, but yet you would hear them on the phone lying. Oh, tell them that I'm not here. Or no, we're not going to go because, we're sick, but then they weren't sick, right? These are just a few of the brief examples that I can name you. But the reality is that until you haven't done the deep work on yourself, and this is like the key part, your paradigm. What are your limiting beliefs? What do you believe to be true? Because if you are in a state where you are constantly thinking that you are separate from whatever your desired outcome is, getting to that desired outcome is going to be that much harder. So this year, I said to myself at the beginning of the year, actually going at the end of last year, and I was telling myself, I want to get another house. I want another house because I take care of my grandparents, and I said, I want to get them their own bedroom with their own bathroom. I don't want them to struggle. I don't want my grandma to have to be worrying about, walking too far. I just want her to be comfortable and my grandpa to be comfortable. And I told myself I was going to make it happen. I wasn't worried about how. I was just worried about what I knew in my mind I wanted to happen. And I shouldn't even say worried. I was just more so aware of what I wanted to happen, right? And in February, the perfect opportunity lined itself up. And I found this house, had everything I was looking for, my 5 bedrooms, my 3.5, basically, 3 bathrooms and another half of a bathroom, almost a 4, over 3,000 square feet, everything I was looking for. And the ironic part is that exact house that I got and purchased this year, I was looking back at some memories. You know how your phone can sometimes show you like memories from the past? I had a screenshot of this house because I had seen this house 2 years ago. And I remember when I went to this house and I saw that house, I was in love with the floor plan. And I just remember at that time telling myself, walking through that house and saying, I'm going to have a house like this one day. I really want something like this and I'm going to have it. And I don't know when, but I know I'm going to have it. And you see, it came to be. And the thing is that it's not just woo-woo. It's not just sitting here and claiming you're in abundance until you turn purple, but it's acting in that assumption. When you have the 80% mind already, the 20% comes very effortlessly because now you're acting from a state of whether it's servicing others, whether it's the growth you need to do, whether it's what systems you need to implement. But now because your mind is so detailed into what it is that you need to do in order for you to achieve that, it becomes easier for you to achieve that 20% action that you need to do. It's like the universe literally aligns everything for you. And if you would have said that to me 5 years ago, I honestly would have looked at you like you were crazy. Like, how are you going to sit here and tell me that if I have like my thoughts together of what I want, that's just going to help me get it? Like, that makes no sense. And now when I say this to people, like sometimes people will ask me like, how do you sell so much? Like, how are you growing your business? And I literally tell them, you know what? I actually manifest a lot. A lot of the things that I've achieved at this point in my life, I sit there and I'm just in gratitude before it even happens. And then they just happen. They continue to roll in. And I'm not saying the bad things can't happen when you are in this like state of coherency, because trust me, I have my fair share of turbulence that happens. But you react to it so differently. Something that would have affected me for days back in the day, it simply doesn't have that control over me. Because at the end of the day, what I tell myself, even when turbulence does happen, I'm like, ooh, it's about to get really good after this. Like, I know this is happening to teach me a lesson. And I know that after I get this lesson, I'm going to move on into a different and higher version of who I was even just yesterday. And I think that wherever you're at in your manifestation journey, if I could give you one solid piece of advice, is to do your deep work internally. I got a random call not too long ago by somebody that I was really happy to hear. They were reaching out to me because they wanted coaching. They wanted some coaching. They had seen that I was going to be launching my new coaching program for peak performance. And it has a lot to do with manifestations, like literally like 99.9 of it. 1% is systems. But for me, like the manifestation is like the key component. And the person reached out to me and they were telling me a little bit about their situation. And essentially when they were asking me like, what's something that you could say, that you would recommend for me to get started? And I was like, you need to start looking at what it is that you've been constantly doing over and over again. What is that pattern that you keep repeating? Because there's something in there that you need to learn. For me, for the longest time, I kept wanting to have a family that I was not looking at what kind of person I needed to be in order to attract the best version of the significant other that I had in my life. And now what's crazy is that as I've taken this entire year to just work on myself, whenever there's somebody that tries to come into my life that isn't of that vibrational match, I automatically catch that. And I'm like, you know what? This is not for me. The right person is going to come. The right person is going to come. And to some people, they think like, oh, because I've heard some people, some guys or girls say that to other people, like, oh, you're just being too demanding. Like you just, that's impossible. You're not going to have that. Says who? Says the person that has a lack and a limiting belief behind what they can achieve or perceive. Therefore, they're imposing that onto you and your beliefs. And now you're thinking and believing that you cannot achieve that because that's what they're saying, simply because they couldn't achieve that. But the reality is that they didn't work on themselves. Therefore, this is why they're still attracting the same thing. You can't expect to attract something that you are not. You can't expect $1 million to come into your lap and you not work on yourself. Because even if that happened, and how many times have we seen this? Like literally do your own research. How many people that literally win the Powerball or just any kind of like automatic like raffle or like a lottery ticket, that they win the money and within less than a year they've lost the money. Why? Because they didn't actually earn that money. They didn't know how to appreciate and work that money. That tool is gone. And they often say that faith, when it comes down to like fortune favors the bold. And it's so true, because when you're bold and you're acting in the assumption of something that's going to work out, you just do it. I remember buying my first house back in 2016. That was one of my first houses. I was 18 years old. I was so scared, guys. I was scared because I wasn't going to have anybody to rely on. I had just had my 7-year-old now. And I remember just feeling really afraid because I was like, man, if I can't make this happen, like, gosh. And then I caught myself. And at that time, I wasn't as heavily involved in manifestations and how they worked. I just always acted in the assumption that I was going to figure it out. That was something that I always did from a very young age, since I had to figure out a lot of things on my own. And I just remember telling myself, like, you know what, we're going to figure it out. Like, we're going to do it. If I have to work extra, if I have to do whatever I have to do, like, my kid is going to have a home and I'm going to give him everything that I didn't have. And, now going on 8 years later, I'm like, gosh, like, if I wouldn't have taken that advantage at that time, I would have lost out on some of the best opportunities. And I didn't even realize it. But because I acted in the assumption of something that I was going to figure out and everything was going to be okay, everything was okay and everything worked itself out. So if you're in a journey right now where you're just trying to become a better version of you, the fact that you're even listening through these podcasts, like, I'm telling you, I sit every single day, every day, wherever it is I'm driving, wherever it is I'm going, I'm constantly listening to a podcast or I'm watching an inspirational video. Very rarely, like, don't get me wrong, I'll listen to like my music and stuff, but even like my music, I'll be listening to Iniko, or I'll be listening to just like Journey of My Life, like just like some very high frequency music that's just like enriching my soul. And the reason for that is because all the energy that you're constantly around is what you're going to now broadcast to everybody else. And when you're listening to stuff that is bringing your frequency down, that is what you're also going to broadcast. So whatever it is that you're doing, I'm telling you, work on yourself. The fact that you're taking the time right now to listen to a motivational podcast, the fact that you're sitting here and internalizing with your thoughts, and the fact that you're actively doing things to help you become a better version of you, you're already on the right track. That's the reality, because there's so many other people that rather be listening to, I'm not even going to say any names here, but gossip shows that I've heard a lot of people like to watch. And I could never, honestly, like, I could not sit there and just watch a show where somebody's like showing like their Gucci belts and bags and, oh my gosh, like look at what's happening to me. And this is just my own observation. I'm not judging it, because a lot of people sometimes confuse that with observation. Like, observing something is very different from judging something. Like, if you want to do that, that's perfectly fine. But for me, I'm observing what I'm doing and I'm being very intentional with what I want to put into my mind, because I value the information that I am basically emerging into, right? So with that being said, remember that you truly have everything it takes to actually live the life that you want to design for yourself. And you want to notice how exactly the universe is responding to you. And if you think about it, when you're putting out a certain vibration, it's the same vibration you're going to get back. I don't know if it's happened to you, but when you're driving and you like let somebody into your lane, and then like next time it's your turn to like get into a lane, somebody will let you in. It happens. The universe is just like, okay, there's your due. But you need to believe on these things, because you see, you can't fool yourself. You can tell yourself that you believe in something that you don't. But at the end of the day, you can't fool yourself. So be intentional. Everything shows up into this world. It's simply a response to how you're acting. And whatever you're putting out is what you're going to get back. So choose love, choose kindness, even when somebody is being ugly toward you, even when somebody is testing you, even when things are not done and they're where exactly you want them to be. Just remember everything's already done. And just remember to show grace, because maybe there's a moment in time where you need somebody to show you grace, and that's going to come back to you. So with that being said, I want to thank you so much for sticking around for this episode, lending me your ear, and I am sending you much love, and I will definitely see you guys, talk to you if you're watching it on the podcast, or if you're listening on YouTube. I'll see you on the next one, and have a fantastic, fantastic week. Talk to you later, guys.